Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Lauren A. Cohen, Esquire. And of course, Esquire means that Lauren is an attorney. She's a graduate of York University and the Osgoode Hall Law School in Toronto, Canada. She's a global entrepreneur and #1 best-selling author, and she is an attorney licensed both in the United States and Canada. Lauren is an expert concierge immigration and business advisor, boasting a stellar track record of success. Lauren has firsthand knowledge of the visa process, having herself immigrated from Canada, and later Lauren became a U.S. or American citizen. She has successfully set up many 501c3 nonprofits all over the country and recently established her own Find My Silver Lining, a nonprofit whose goal is to inspire others to persevere through challenging times and focus on the bright side as they strive to lead fulfilling lives. Lauren has received numerous awards and recognitions, including a 2018 award through the Florida Association of Women Lawyers as a leader in the law. Lauren was recently invited to join the expert faculty of CEO Space International, a top-tier global training organization. She's a regular writer and contributor to magazines, books, and other media globally for several years. Lauren has been featured in multiple mediums, including the Wall Street Journal, NPR, many television broadcasts, and her first book, Finding Your Silver Lining in the Business Immigration Process, was a #1 bestseller. The proceeds of Lauren's book are being used to fund Find My Silver Lining. Her second book, which is focused on the franchise industry, is A Burning Desire to Succeed, Striking the Perfect Franchise Match, and it is currently available as an ebook. And today we're talking with Lauren because there's been some fascinating new information in the world of immigration. So I'd like you, Lauren, to tell me a little bit more about what is happening in immigration. And I understand that this just took effect on the 1st of May.
Correct. Excuse me. Thank you, Tammy. It's such a pleasure to be here. We have quite a story, you and I, of how we met, but that's another story for another day. So there's always news in immigration, and the news that I'm going to share is actually very different than the news that most of you are familiar with.
Because sorry, are you
hearing?
Sorry.
It's all fixed now. One moment, now it's fixed. So the news that you're going to hear today from me is different than the news that you hear every day on the news. Why? Well, I'm not talking about the Mexican border or immigration reform or any of that. I am talking about a business immigration visa that's discussed in my book, Finding Your Silver Lining in the Business Immigration Process. It's called the most coveted visa, and it's coveted. It's an E-2 visa. It's coveted because it's the most flexible visa available. It does not give you access to a permanent residence, but it's renewable indefinitely, and it's usually granted for a period of up to 5 years. So the big news is, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that looks, but the big news is that as of May 1st, Israelis can now apply for E-2 visas. Now, that's been a long time coming, not just because of the relationship, the unbelievably close relationship between Israel and the U.S., but also because there's been some political and other issues that have prevented this treaty. It's a bilateral treaty between the U.S. and Israel from actually being implemented and put into effect. So what that means is in 2012, then President Obama signed the treaty for the U.S. side. It was countersigned a couple of years later in Israel. It took some time because of various things in the Israeli Knesset, but it's taken since then, so basically since 2014 until May 1st, last week, to actually start taking Israelis and implementing this and putting it into action. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Most of them are political. So that is the big news that I have, is that as of May 1st, Israelis can now apply for and obtain E-2 treaty investor visas, which require a substantial investment in a U.S. business that's not marginal, meaning that it's not only set up to support the investor and his or her family.
So why is this such a big deal in terms of for business people? And I mean, you mentioned that this is the most flexible visa available for 5 years. And I imagine that as far as business goes, this is really huge for people in business. Can you go a little deeper into that?
Sure, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, in general, because it's not just Israel. This is a treaty investor visa. So a treaty means it's bilateral. It's a bilateral treaty between the country from which the investor comes and the U.S. So we have treaties. The U.S. has treaties with many, many, many countries all over the world. No BRICS countries, I will say, like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. None of those countries qualify. But Canada, most European countries, a few South American countries, Mexico, like I say, most European countries qualify. So the reason that it's such a big deal is because the main requirement is that you invest a substantial amount of money into a U.S. business. It doesn't have to be a particular type of business. It has to be a viable business and not marginal. So basically, this gives you, as a foreign investor, the most flexible options to come into the U.S. because it opens doors based on your ability to invest in a U.S. business. You can start a new business. You don't have to buy an existing business. Actually, most people do. You can buy a franchise. That's why I wrote the book about franchising. But the key is it's the most flexible because there's no specific number. Although most people say between 100 and 200,000 is the investment amount, there's no specific number like with an EB-5, which we won't talk about today, but that's a minimum investment of 500,000 or $1 million, depending on the location. There's no location specificity. There's no, you don't have to have a resume or experience in the business into which you're investing or the business you're setting up. And you're usually granted 5 years, depending on your country of origin and the reciprocity relationship. So that gives you a lot of time to build your business and get to renewal time 5 years. Hence, you're going to show that your business is still viable and that you can renew it. Now, there's another visa called an L1 visa, which is it's challenging these days and becoming more challenging under the current administration. Now, the L1 visa does lead to a green card, but it's only granted for an initial 1 year period, and your maximum number of renewals is 2. Whereas with the E2, you could basically be here as long as you continue to have a viable business for your lifetime. Because as long as you keep qualifying and showing that your intent is temporary, which is a whole other story that we won't discuss because the requirement is that your intention has to be temporary. So you have to maintain ties with your home country. But as long as you continue to qualify, you really can renew this visa indefinitely. Most people eventually transition it in some way. They use the original investment and augment it and turn it into an EB-5 or a different kind of visa that's more permanent. Because of course, it's not that fun every 5 years to not know if you're going to continue to live where you're living, right? And have no real control over that. So your family is in a state of upheaval every time that you need to renew. So there are issues on the negative side, but on the positive side, it's the most coveted visa because of the flexibility and the fact that it can be renewed indefinitely.
So the idea with this type of visa is that you are coming to the United States to either create a new business or invest in a business. And does this mean that you need to be physically in the United States for a certain period of time working on this business, but you still have the ability to go back and forth to your home country?
Yes. So there's no requirement that you're in the U.S. for a specific period of time, but this gives you the freedom to be in the U.S. for extended periods of time and to go back and forth to your home country. And everything else, like the investment that you're investing in a U.S. business, it's basically about, one of the reasons that this is such a coveted visa is because you are bringing capital to the U.S. and creating jobs, because we write business plans to support these investments. So the key is, as recently published on our blog articles, it's not just about finding a business, making an investment, and getting your visa. There's a whole process that you have to go through, including making sure you're finding the right business that's going to be viable, that's going to support your family. These are big decisions. You're investing a lot of money into this country. You want to create a very strong business plan. We help you through that. We help find and vet the business opportunities, including franchises. So it's very important to have that one-stop solution that we provide, that concierge that's going to hold your hand. Because coming into a new country, I've done it myself. It's not easy, Tammy. I mean, imagine moving to India where you just were. It's okay. Granted, coming from Canada like I did to the U.S. is not quite as big a deal as moving from the U.S. to India or vice versa. But it's still a different country, and it's still a ton of adjustments and a ton of things that are different, and you don't realize how much until you actually make that move. So what we try to do at E-Counsel is to hold your hand through the process of all these different steps so that you can focus on, bringing your family here, starting your business, having the support that you need. You have to set up a bank account. You have to get accountants, all these service providers. We can help you with all of that. And I think that when you're moving from one country to the other, and I know this firsthand, there's just so much to think about. If you have a home in your home country, as I did, which I wish I had never sold in Toronto, but that's another story. That's another story altogether. But, you've got a home, you've got children, you've got schools to think about, you've got potentially your spouse needs a job, and your spouse will be able to get a job once you get your visa. They have a derivative visa. There's just so much. So why are you going to think about all of this other stuff as well? Work with somebody that can really help you through the process. And back to the Israelis, which is kind of the May 1st big deal. So Israel is known as the startup nation, and Israelis are the most technologically savvy people in the world. That tiny little country, which is my heart. As I always say, I'm from Canada. I live in the U.S., but my heart is always with and in Israel. And I will be there on June 13th, and I can't wait. It's just I don't think you've been there, right?
No, I haven't.
So it's this tiny sliver of land in the middle of all these hateful people that has developed things that, half the apps on your phone, for example. So it's crazy. And to give Israelis an opportunity to come to the U.S. legally and bring their amazing business ideas to the U.S. that are developed in Israel and give them an opportunity to build a life here is just an amazing thing for me to be able to do and help move them through the process. It's funny, I had 2 calls this morning, on my way to the gym. So before 8 o'clock, and this is the first day that this has happened, 2 calls from immigration attorneys saying to me, Lauren, are you still helping find the businesses? I have all these Israeli clients that have been waiting for their E-2s. I'm like, yes. And they're like, are you still writing the business plans? Are you still helping? I'm like, yes. So I have 2 calls set up later today to speak with both of them, because they really, like I say, there's just only so much that any prospective investor can handle. So why not stay in your lane and let the experts handle all this other stuff for you so that you have some security that you're going to get your visa and be able to live in this country peacefully and successfully.
So what you help people do then with the e-counsels is, if they already have a visa, then you help them find the business so that they can come and do it the right way and create the business in the United States. Or if they need a visa, you can help them set that up. Is that accurate?
Not exactly. So
Okay.
the only visa that they would usually have if they were in this process would be a B1, B2, which is basically an opportunity to go back and forth and explore business opportunities. But this would be the visa that they would get to allow them to actually live and work in the U.S. But I work with other immigration attorneys because none of them are crazy enough to do the whole scope of work that I do, which is basically support everything that they do. So I'm like the package that goes around the service that they're providing. So even though I'm an attorney, I work with tons of amazing immigration attorneys that have different skill sets or different, like some speak Hebrew more fluently than me. Some might speak French, so they have a French clientele. So I work with and around them to support them. But because I'm an attorney, I look at things very differently, including vetting the business, because I'm not just vetting the business from a business perspective, but also from a legal perspective. Because what might be a successful business from your standard return on investment that we hear about every day may not be a successful business from the visa perspective. And we have to look at it from both, or the investor is going to fail and end up having to pack up and go home. And that's not what I want.
So what type of businesses typically would be a type of business that would be successful?
Yeah, so that is it's anyone's game. I happen to like franchises, and I'll tell you why. So franchises are, turnkey. Mm-hmm. So when you're coming into, and for Israelis, they may not work as well because Israelis often have a business there, like a startup business that they're bringing over here. But in general, and I've worked with so many Israelis over time that have brilliant businesses. Some of them have grown exponentially. One in particular that he's just a wonderful client, and I think he actually just converted over to a green card. So super guy. But anyway, the point is that for the most part, business in entrepreneurs, we'll call these foreign investors entrepreneurs because that's generally what they are, or they are forced entrepreneurs because they have to be to come into the country. So they may have had a job where they were, but now they're coming in. So I feel that with a franchise, because it's turnkey, and again, as I keep saying, you've got so much to think about. Let's limit the risk in what you're investing into. And with a franchise, you have a turnkey, you have the support, you basically a lot of times have full marketing support. So you may pay a little bit on the royalty side, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it may well be that after 5 or 10 years, maybe you'll sell the franchise and move into a different business. But by then you'll have familiarity with running a business in the U.S. As I say, coming from Canada to the U.S. is not as big a deal as coming from somewhere like India or Israel, where the culture is different. And no matter what, no matter how similar they might seem, you have a language barrier. You have very different cultural ways, different ways of doing business, different ways of conducting business. I remember one time I was at a luncheon and there were these lovely South American couple raffled off a book, and I won the book, and I already had the book. So I said, you know what, I'm going to be a go-giver, and I'm going to give the book to somebody else. And they were so insulted because that's not, you don't do that. And I was trying to be kind and, give back. But they were so insulted. It took me like a month to kind of resolve things with them. It's the same, like Israelis have definitely a not great reputation, but it's because they're coming from a war-torn country where every day there's rockets flying in like there are right now, and you don't know what the next day is going to bring. And that's part of what gives Israel its drive and its amazing pioneerism because they don't have a choice. It's capitalism at its best. And, if they're driven entrepreneurs because they have to be. So it's just that cultural difference has to be understood by whoever they're working with. And people don't always understand that because if you haven't been there, you haven't felt it, it's a hard culture to grasp. So like in India, I mean, things that you thought were normal weren't, right?
Oh, the pace of life is so fast, and
Yeah.
and it was just millions and millions of people. And I'm used to, to me, a traffic jam is if I see 12 cars out on the road. So it
Yeah.
is a very different thing. And I imagine, especially if you're trying to create a business in a totally different country, I think you're right. You need guidance in developing that business plan. And I can see where a franchise would be a good starting point because of the fact that you wouldn't have to, like you said, reinvent the wheel. You could, use a formula that's already been proven and go from there. And I would think that would be useful because I remember, when back in the 70s, my ex-husband and I, we thought about moving to Canada because his father lived there and he was farming cattle up in Alberta. And I remember looking into what it would take to move to Canada, and there was a lot involved. And you had to have sponsors, you had to have all of these different things in place in order to do that. But a business, it just seems, I mean, I know it's hard enough for an American entrepreneur to start a business, and it's the country that, most of us have grown up in. There's all these little things and licenses and everything that you would have to do. So your company, you basically step in and you help them make all those connections and give them the resources, so that like you said, 5 years, it seems like a long time, but in the scheme of business, it's actually a relatively short amount of time, because there's much involved. So if somebody wants to reach out and talk to you some more, how can they do that?
Well, I am all over Facebook and LinkedIn and the internet, but my website is ecounselinc.com, ECOUNCILINC.com, or you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, eCounsel Inc. or Lauren Cohen. Our toll-free number is 866-724-0085, 866-724-0085. And I'll give you my personal email just because it's easier. It's pretty easy, and you'll like this because you highlighted Esquire. It's laurenesq@gmail, LAURENESQ@gmail. And I would be more than happy. I have another thing I should mention. We have a super quiz that we've just built, Tammy, which we just launched it actually the same day that May 1st, when Israel became a part of the E-2 world. It's called Global Biz Quiz. So if you go to Global Biz Quiz, just like it sounds, all one word, globalbizquiz.com, you can try our quiz and see if you qualify for a visa, and if so, how that might look, and we can set up a call to discuss your options. So it's a great way for us to help invest in the U.S. economy and create jobs. And also, it's an opportunity for business owners here that might not have thought of the option of bringing foreign investors, especially a multi-unit business. This could be an option. I actually have a franchise page that helps franchises and prospective franchises to find foreign investor leads. So I have a system I created. It's a proprietary system and a report that we created to kind of highlight why the franchise could be so great for a prospective foreign investor. So, and of course, you can always find me through Tammy.
Yes. Well, I think that's really interesting, Lauren, the fact globalbizquiz.com, because you can check it out. But again, you just mentioned there are two sides of the equation. You could be a company in the United States looking for foreign investors. And of course, you might not know how to go about connecting. So that's a good opportunity on both sides, for someone coming to the United States to do business, and if they're interested in franchises, or if maybe you're a franchise or a business in the United States seeking that type of relationship, that would be really great. So the quiz that you take, it's Global Biz Quiz. I like that. It rhymes.
Thank you.
globalbizquiz.com. And then it's the repeat the name. It's ecounselinc.com.
Yes, all one word. ECOUNCILINC. Next time, that's why I picked my other company name so much easier, because I always had to spell that one out, kind of like my son's name. I don't know. I just like to make things difficult. I wanted to also add one thing. I know that when Allison Maslin, who we both know well, interviewed me on her show, she was talking all about how foreign investors are a great way to raise capital for your business. That's a whole other dimension of what this presents, because let's say, even if you have friends and family, let's say that you have a buddy in Israel or Canada or South America that wants to invest in your business. And really, this is like a sweetener for them. It's not only will they get an opportunity to invest, but also they'll get an opportunity to come to the U.S. and raise their kids here, or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of, you're right, it is two-sided. It's multifaceted, actually, and there's just so much opportunity that I would love to share with everybody that wants to find out more.
Well, it's eye-opening, especially, as an entrepreneur. I don't know that I've ever looked or thought about outside of the United States who might be out there. And just recently, I've actually traveled to India because I have a client who is global. They have headquarters in India and also in the United States. So it is something that I'm just becoming aware of, and it is something that we had this opportunity to talk about it. And everyone, I'll be talking with Lauren again about her scale-up checkup and her scale-up enterprises, because there's a lot that Lauren does to help businesses who are growing and scaling from, maybe right now you're just an individual or a solo entrepreneur, but maybe your company is bigger, or you want to learn how to expand your company. So I'll be talking with Lauren about how you can scale up in another interview in another time. So again, everyone, check out ecounselinc.com and go to the Global Biz Quiz. I love that. globalbizquiz.com. Take the quiz to find out about if you can qualify for a visa. So, Lauren, before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Nope. I think that this is great. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to work with you, Tammy. And a lot of people have relationships like you that they may not have explored, to see if there might be an opportunity for an investor to help really grow your business globally, as well as domestically. So there's just no shortage. And a lot of potential multi-unit businesses could be franchises or other multi-unit options that could really be appealing for foreign and domestic investors. So there's a lot of things to think about. I've given everybody, I think, a lot of food for thought. This is why my mind is always spinning and I don't sleep so well at night, because I've always got something else going on, right? And one of the things I want to make sure we talk about on our next session is the nonprofits and how they can help add value to your business as well. So I will look forward to that.
Well, it sounds to me like we're going to have several conversations in the future. So everyone, you can look forward to learning more about Lauren Cohen, Esquire. And Lauren, thank you so much. One thing about you definitely are a true thought leader. And I really appreciate you bringing this global concept to our attention, because again, sometimes we don't see how big our opportunities really are, and you've really opened my eyes to thinking more globally. Everyone, go to globalbizquiz.com and check that out, and definitely reach out to Lauren, and I'll put her contact information into the show notes so it can be very easy for you to connect with her. Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.